everyone, so I thought I'd pop on here today and I wanted to talk to you about practical advice for new mums. You might be thinking, what makes you think you are any position to be giving new mums advice? You have only been a mum for 2 minutes, and you would be right in thinking so. But I have learnt a few little things, and as somebody kindly pointed out, I'm kind of in the middle of it, so these things are sort of relevant to me still, if that makes sense. That does not mean that I don't need advice constantly, because I do. But the number one thing that I have found myself doing and that I find really useful is Mumsnet. I know Mumsnet gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's basically just a forum where people talk about loads of different experiences. So anything that I am wondering, I'll type whatever that thing is and Mumsnet and just read through some of the threads, and sometimes I just find the reassurance helpful, sometimes I learn things, and I just find it kind of a good source of information. You can get the app on your phone. And you know, I don't like post on there and things, but I would, maybe I will. But yeah, I find that really, really useful. Another thing is to understand that things change constantly. As somebody who's very controlling, this is very hard for me to do, but everything's entirely beyond your control and things change constantly and you have to just go with it. I know it's not easy, but things just change with babies constantly. I also did want to, I'm just looking at my phone because I've written kind of notes down. I wanted to touch a little bit on reflux. Now, I am going to do a whole dedicated video about reflux because Lola has reflux and it's a challenging thing. And we've discovered a few things that work, a few things that don't. And I really, really want to make an in-depth video about it because I was trying to look for an in-depth video about it and all I could find was kind of videos that were from like doctors, and like for some reason there were a lot of like people in the US and their approach seemed to be a little bit different and what they could get was different, and I want to really, really delve into it and kind of understand fully because Lola's reflux isn't particularly bad, but even so I want to just make sure that kind of all bases are covered with that. So that's that about reflux, but a few things that I have found to have helped us have been baby Gaviscon, speak to your GP about that, and just kind of investigate a little bit. You'll find that you become kind of the best expert on things like that because you know what works best for your baby. Another thing I did just want to give you advice on was to purchase the Angel Care sensor mat. I know that it's a little bit expensive. You might be thinking, no, I don't need that. But if you're a first time mum, obviously the peace of mind is just irreplaceable. I didn't have it from the start and I really wish that I did. It was useful, like really just it helps. Then another thing was to do with routine. Now I know that routine is a hot topic. I'm somebody that very much likes routine. I like a routine. I am always trying to implement a routine. Routine is my thing. Shot every time I say routine. But it's the really early days, you can't really implement a routine, but then I found what I ended up doing was I was trying to implement a routine all the time and it just wasn't working and that stressed me out. So then what I did end up doing was kind of just letting her figure out what her routine was, and now we have figured that out and we're kind of in a nice routine, and I find it really helps to just make everything easier and you feel a bit more in control and just a little bit more like you have got it on lock, which doesn't happen very often to me, but it helps. Another thing that everybody says is that this too shall pass, and it's a cliche, but it is so true, because let me tell you that the early newborn days are really, really, really hard and also a little bit crap. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You feel like your body is not yours, you're just constantly sat on the couch, which some people might not mind, but I'm not somebody that does that anyway, and I just found it so incredibly difficult to just have to kind of give myself to that and just sit there. And it was just really, really hard, and I think it's because my expectation wasn't correct, and you have to understand that when they're really tiny, that is what it will be like, and the days and nights will look the same, and you will just be sat there in your pyjamas pretty much all the time. and understand that, but also understand that that doesn't happen all the time. Like, you know, I'm dressed today, I've got makeup. It was a juggling act, and I did it in like 2 different nap sessions because I couldn't do it all in one nap because that nap wasn't long enough. But, you know, I got there in the end, kind of thing. But it is something to kind of to bear in mind. And then another thing I wanted to say as well was to take all the advice and don't. Now what that means is that I am so open to hearing advice from other mums. I relish it. I want to hear everything. I want to know what worked for you. I want to know what didn't work for you. I really want to know, because I, you know, haven't done this before and I don't know very much, and I'm open to everything. So that's really important, to be able to take it on board and to not be like, I know best, which you would be surprised how many new mums do seem to feel that way. And I'm like, astounds me that you have that kind of confidence in yourself, because I feel like I know nothing. But also know when somebody is telling you something that you know isn't the right advice for you. So for example, I don't let Lola like cry out or anything like that. It's not recommended for her age anyway, and it's not my thing. I understand the need for it, and if you can do it and you can do it successfully, then I bet it's great. I don't think I can do it. But what I will say is that, like, you know, people will try and recommend things like that to you and say, oh, you know, you don't get used to this, don't do this, don't do that. And you have to just sort of smile and be like, yeah, and just do what you're gonna do. Don't let people put you off, and people do try and put you off, and people kind of like to shove their 2 pennies worth in. Which another thing that will that I will say is that a lot of times, like, older mums will give you advice, and not older as in like they've just had a baby, but like, you know, your mum, your auntie, your grandma or whatever will give you advice, and you know, it's golden advice because they've raised grown-up children and they've done it a bunch of times and things like that. But you do also need to understand that when they had children, things were very different. When they had babies, things were very different. The products were different, the procedures were different, the you know, what was considered to be safe was different. It really was different, and we've kind of learnt from that, and that's why things are the way that they are now. And you really do need to take that into consideration and kind of weigh up what you deem to be good and not good, and safe and not safe, and not necessarily rely on the advice of, like, you know, your grandma who had a baby 50 years ago, because it's vastly different to having a baby now. Which brings me on to the second point of that, which is that you need to find yourself a good support system. It is vital for your sanity, for your mental health, for just everything. And when I say a good support system, I mean, this can be family, this can be friends, or this can be online. I've kind of found my groove a little bit more online, I think. Yeah, speaking of support system, my mum's like my only support system really, because my sisters don't have babies, and they, like, you know, they think she's very cute and everything, but it's like they're like 22, 20 and 16. It's limited interest in things to do with baby life, because it is boring if you don't have a baby, let's be honest. It's massively boring if you don't have a baby. Which brings me on to, if you're like one of the first ones out of your friends to have a baby, which I actually happen to be, I think out of my whole kind of like friend group, other than like friends I've got who are older than me, I'm the first. No, I'm not actually. I've got one friend who has got a baby. Her daughter's 1.5. But yeah, you need to kind of find your support group where you can feel not judged, and you can feel like you can say, this is really hard, I'm really struggling, I feel like I'm giving so much of myself and that's hard for me, and I'm tired. And for people to not think that you're moaning, and for people to just listen to you. And I think that doing it online is actually a really great way of doing it. It's a really nice kind of community. I've set up a little Instagram page, which I'll link down below, that's kind of not just my normal Instagram page, where I talk about baby stuff and motherhood, and I've just found it really kind of helpful, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, I will love you and leave you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all very soon.